Uh, we shall go live now. Hey Ryan, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I think you put it on mute actually. Okay. So good morning everyone. We are the Global Shapers Panjim Hub, and not know this is an initiative of the World Economic Forum, and we are gearing up to launch a social impact project for the state of Goa. At a time when the entire world finds itself embroiled in a pandemic and struggles with worldwide economic recession, us, the Panjim Hub Shapers, are working towards creating a positive and progressive environment in the local enterprise. A project called the Smart Network aims at creating a network of splits, small businesses, and experienced professionals to boost the local enterprise ecosystem in Goa. One of the events that we intend to umbrella of speakers to share their knowledge would be entrepreneurs, achievers, and mentors from within the state, the country, and also the international community. Let's start our launch event for the project, which we are starting virtually on YouTube Live. Hope to see you logged in until the end.
So when I did come back, I drew up a business plan. I put down the numbers. I wanted to figure out the feasibility, and to what extent would I scale this to be. Um, Once the numbers did start to make a bit of sense, I started working on the branding. Um, I like the idea of minimalism, and with that in mind, I went on creating the branding. After I created the branding, I went on to create the brand book. The brand book is so essential because once you do create the brand book, it becomes the medium through which you push all your relevant uh, marketing. Your everything comes out through your brand book. I incorporated the company, and post that, I went on to create and open a bank account. Um, then what happens is you need to figure out what sort of channel reaches out to your audience. For hostels, it was all about creating a website and social media because that is what and that is where today, honestly, we get most of our customers from. Um, Fortunately, I was lucky enough to be working with a great team. It was a lot smoother and a lot easier creating the website and social media. Um, the next and most important part is developing my SOPs and which softwares you want to run it and monitor it on. Then when I did go about this part, I thought about how I would want to keep in control, and I created something and I chose something that is cloud based. Um, Once I completely identified this, I went on to the next step, which was identifying the first property. Once I identified the first property, comes the next and most important part: hiring. Getting the right team and making sure that they are aware of what you are trying to achieve is probably the most critical part. Um, I would highly encourage anyone thinking of incorporating the startup and getting it started on their journey to do it in Goa. Tourism is a no-brainer here, and with all other industries, we do have the required setup, and the government is trying to push up startups. Uh, one of the great initiatives they're trying to do is startup Goa, where for every industry you can probably try and find something that is relevant to your industry and apply, and you get such great benefits. Um, Setting up of your startup is relatively smooth. Comparatively, if you even think of setting it up in a Bombay or a Delhi, uh, and which other or better place would you rather set it up in? Now, going back to hostels, Arambul is where I opened my first hostel in October. This is October 2019, and Vagador in December of 2019. Since initially it was just me, it allowed me to oversee all the departments, like starting from HR to accounts, even including operations, reservations, sales, marketing, while also interacting with guests, um, getting their feedback. I think it's like absolutely critical, understanding all aspects of your business. I started Piggy by borrowing a security deposit for my first two properties from my mother, um, with a working capital of roughly 5 lakh rupees. Um, all the money made, I reinvested it back into the business and slowly and steadily grew it. Because with such a small amount, it allowed me to pay attention to every expense occurring over time. It allowed me to slowly and steadily build the business in a leaner way. Um, that is back in 2019. Fast forward now to 2000, and whole lockdown, this whole COVID pandemic that we're facing turned out to be an immediate blow, especially to tourism as we know it. Things were so bad that initially so many tourists stuck in Arambol had no place to go. So we took it upon ourselves back then to host all these tourists. And little did we know they were going to be staying with us for 3 more months. That is one of the reasons today we have launched an initiative called Piggy Cares within the company. More than anything, it is a social awareness creation and fundraising platform for the already existing NGOs. And the least we can do is try and assist them in whatever way we can. Now, circling back to COVID, by May, the damage was already done, especially to tourism. But what this allowed me to do through this period is ramp up our marketing efforts and get an incredible team with some incredible talent on board. My core team went from just being me in February to a 9 member strong team as today. Besides this, the operation team at each property is doing a fantastic job. So, rethinking our long-term strategy, we have decided to speed up scaling. Initially, what we had planned out over a 5-year period, we did decide we'll do it immediately over a year, and what we have done is put it in a 3-6 month plan. We will try and achieve shorter goals quicker. Also, what we do stand for as a core, as a hostel company, is community. Layman's terms, it's basically just getting people together, making sure they have a great experience while they are staying with us. One of the few things I do remember is when I was backpacking last year through Vietnam. There was a very basic hostel, and we stayed in this tiny town called Hoi An. Um, so basic, in fact, like even the water gave us issues. There was no hot water many times. Half the time the air conditioning didn't work. But just the overall look, the feel, the vibe of that hostel, the friendly staff, the people, the travelers we made it one of the most amazing trips. And especially on that trip, it was the most amazing weekends I had experienced. So around the same core of community, we have decided to horizontally and vertically expand and diversify. We have now launched an experience company, Bazinga Experiences, and that is something that we look to push out culture, adventure. We've also started a co-living brand, something that is now picking up in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. 73 Living is what we are running it under. Um, Considering the day and age we live in today, using tech is so important, especially when you're trying to scale, when you're trying to grow, and that is something we had considered right from inception. Right now, we are working with an AI-based system which enables us to get a better understanding of the demand in the market and accordingly price. We use this at each and every hostel, so it does really give us a competitive advantage. Also, what we try and do use cloud-based softwares wherever possible that allows us to seamlessly view it from one platform itself. From a tech development perspective, we have now started developing our own tech, and it should be rolling out fairly soon. Right now, from an guest experience angle, what we are trying to develop is tech based on the guest experience rather than everything else around it. All this is being developed in Goa itself. Uh, Here at Biggie, what we do feel is like regardless of everything, we do hire the best talent, and that is why we've been able to. Uh, that is why we've been able to grow so fast. One of the most important things we have done is getting the best people on board, and even today, we are so lucky to be working with such a young and energetic team. The average age of our team is 26. So going back, going back to college days, and the most critical element that has played a part in the person and Um, the choices I do make today is the fact that I have traveled, the fact that I have been around, I have seen and experienced what I am pushing out. Today, travel is so very reasonable, and I think everybody should take the time and the opportunity to do so. Tickets, stays, it's so much more reasonable than it used to be back before. And also, when I say travel, I don't mean you try and be a tourist, you try and cram 100 cities in a month or so. I mean, really experience it, live the local way, eat the local food, stay at an hostel, meet the fellow travelers, wander off the beaten path. So many ideas, learnings while traveling. It opens your mind. It allows you to learn so many different cultures and the ways of life. Another thing, in fact, that has helped me grow, being from a small town like Goa, is the fact that and the opportunity that I've got to live and work in cities like Pune and London. Being from Goa, the big city has taught us so many things, right from the importance of punctuality to the fact that you get to learn and adapt to a much faster working pace. And I would highly recommend that if anybody got the opportunity to do that, they should take the opportunity and work in a tier one in a metro, and it'll help you shape you to follow you. Uh, one of the things you do eventually to get back is a way better understanding and appreciation even from Goa. Otherwise, just from entrepreneurship as a broader perspective, circling back to my journey, besides having great advisors, books are something I got a lot of inspiration from. Just really quickly, Zero to One, Lean Startup, Compound Effect, Finding My Virginity by Richard Branson, someone who I greatly admire, and he's doing some great work today. Entrepreneurship is so important because we get to look at a different angle. We get to create solutions for problems, and what better place than Goa or any developing nation to create and to do and to work from. The way we should look at entrepreneurship and the way we should, um, just for an example sake, uh, most small businesses, especially households, you take it just in general. Um, from a perspective in a small town right now today in Goa, we have so many issues. We can't get electricians, plumbers, and we try. What we need to do is just look at this as an opportunity to create a solution for this problem. Something like what Urban Clap or a way bigger company, TaskRabbit, is doing internationally is we put together this network. We create this network. Uh, Geographically speaking, we get people from Panjim to do something uh, for the problem in Panjim itself. We get handyman together. We get electricians, plumbers. We get them together and we schedule them, right? And then the next part comes with accountability, and we do a review rating system. Um, just from a broader perspective today, that is something that is the biggest issue faced, and we by creating that solution, such a small opportunity, but you can scale it to such a big extent. Even thinking from an exit perspective, you can eventually just sell it to a company like Urban Clapper, TaskRabbit. Sports is another great opportunity here in Goa. One thing that is popping up all over Goa are futsal turfs. Imagine how cool it would be, just in a similar fashion, in accordance with the local bodies. We could set up everything in a sustainable way. We could use tech. We can automate the bookings, create a brand, and franchise for quicker scaling. Just the overall point being that in Goa itself, more opportunities than other parts, and um, no better place to kick off your business. And yeah, that's where I would want to end today. Thank you so much. I think we can now start the Q&A.
you so much for being so enthusiastic on a Sunday morning, Dan. We have had a good response from the attendants as well. There are a few questions that have come up. The first was asked by Pallav Ninja. She asks, what is the scope of hospitality industry post-COVID?
Okay, so hospitality industry, even during COVID right now, in Goa itself, we have seen quite quite a good inbound tourism. The fact that international travel hasn't opened has been a small pain point, but regardless, in Goa itself, we have seen um, a good bounce back in tourism. We take into account the fact that we want to open hostels in the north, and next season, when the way I look at it is from May to October, there will be revenge travel is something that everybody's been talking about. You take into consideration Make My Trip. They have been pushing and trying to sell as much as possible. And during COVID and post COVID, there will definitely be a double bounce back in tourism, especially in hostels, and focusing on opening hostels in the north, and then probably coming back later down the south.
Okay, so to conclude, what would, according to you, are the three things that any budding entrepreneur in Goa should keep in mind?
Okay, right now in Goa, I think as a budding entrepreneur in Goa itself, few things to consider. Do all your basics. Do make sure you cover and do your own research. Having an idea is great, but actually planning it out and seeing how you can scale it and to what extent, and consider each and every risk. Goa itself, we have all the relevant infrastructure, but at the same time, we need to be a bit wary. Regardless, that is one thing that you should consider. The second thing is, I would say, uh, getting the right talent on board is the second thing. You need to be able to hire, at the same time, make sure that the team you hire knows what you are trying to do and how you're trying to accomplish it. And the third thing in Goa, just relax. At the end of the day, have a cold beer and just relax. Things will work out. Just plan, and everything's gonna be okay.
Thank you for those tips. I think we are heading over to our next speaker.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey guys, good morning. Yeah, hi. So do I dive straight in, or do we start the introduction? Okay, I'm going to start the introduction then. Just want to make sure first that everyone can hear me. Can someone from Global Shapers confirm that I'm audible and visible? Awesome, thanks Aisha. Okay, cool. Hi guys, I'm Luke. I'm from Saligaon. I'm actually chatting from my home right now. My mom is proudly watching me from the other side. So it's a beautiful Sunday morning. We actually have a motorcycle ride today. I've taken time out of it, and I'm then going to go and join back in. Okay. Thank you for this opportunity. I won't speak for very long. I just have a very short idea, a very simple idea that I'd like to share with this young and driven community today. Okay. once again, thanks to the entire crew at Global Shapers. I know how hard it is to put together an event, especially when you're volunteer driven, and I really appreciate this chance. All right. Hi, Malika. Morning.
Hi, Luke. How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us today. Yeah, how are you feeling? Where are you joining us from this morning?
I'm feeling pretty awesome. I'm joining from home, and yeah, actually that's my house. That's my family, my mom there.
Oh,
I
nice.
yeah, just got the lights up for Christmas yesterday.
Oh, lovely.
Nice to be home. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to introduce you, and then you can start. So, hi everyone, thanks for joining us this morning. So we have here with us a really amazing speaker, Luke Sequela. So Luke is he runs his own company. So he's a founder and CEO of Nomadic, which is a software logistics company. He also on the side kind of promotes the whole startup scene in Goa. So he's been a pretty influential factor doing that. He's been promoting, he has initiatives including Startup Goa and also Goa Meet. So Startup Goa promotes a lot of tech initiatives around. They have really interesting things like job boards and different events happening all the time. While Goa Me is a really interesting website that crowdsources and delivers travel guides and reviews about Goa and kind of trying to give the whole authentic feel of Goa. And as if that isn't enough, Luke also does some really interesting, he has really cool hobbies, including techno music, and he runs all these motorcycle groups on the weekends. So that's actually where he is right now. That's right, Luke. He's running one of his motorcycle events. So yeah, today Luke is going to be talking to us about how startups and innovation are Goa's future. So over to you, Luke.
Yep. Thanks, Monica. Cool. I'm going to keep this short, and I'm going to actually read from a bunch of notes I wrote down just before this. Don't mind me. Okay. So, first of all, somewhere around 12 or 13 years ago, I thought to myself that Goa would likely become a digital hub. And I thought this because I thought of it as, if you think about California, it's got the incredible natural beauty, it's got a lot of talent, it's got a wonderful culture behind it that's great for building companies. So I myself, Goa is pretty much the same. It's got that West Coast vibe going on. It's just like we did not have enough institutions and enough people in the space at the time. Somewhere around 10 years ago, on the 20th of October, we launched Startup Goa, which was a little volunteer-driven organization to start world-class companies from Goa. Okay. Until this day, we've stayed completely independent, no investments from anybody else other than the little money that we put in it ourselves. We don't charge anyone any fees, and we built up this little hub now for startups in Goa. Through this little initiative, I've had the unique vantage point of looking at how Goa's tech scene is evolving and where it's going. Okay, and because of these conversations with countless entrepreneurs over the years and the privilege and opportunity to see digital communities in other countries, I've evolved a few thoughts on where I think Goa's future can lie. And of course, it's just my personal thoughts. I do not want to turn this into a manifesto for Goa's future. But this is how I would prefer to see Goa's pathway evolve. Okay? I'll read to you from my notes, my little diary here. So Goa is on a path to becoming a digital hub. The question is, what kind of digital hub? Will it turn into something like Bangalore today? Or will we evolve in the direction of cities like Stockholm or Santiago in Chile? What does that really mean, actually? What is the difference between a Bangalore and a Santiago? I'd like to share a few thoughts on the journey that Goa is on. I believe that Goa's digital revolution is going to be more of a cultural revolution, not in the Chinese cultural revolution way, but a different kind of cultural revolution. A revolution in the way that Goa and Goans see each other. A change in the mindset from family networks of influence to digital networks of collaboration. We have a choice. I do not believe that the Bangalore path is the right path for us. I do not believe that bringing in 10 companies and giving them prime property to hire 10,000 people is a form of stimulating startups. I think that's a form of stimulating real estate. I think to really stimulate startups and innovation, we need a different approach. We need to go down the path of cities like Stockholm and Santiago. So I believe that if can this work? How do we become a digital product hub without selling tens of millions of crores worth of real estate? Like, why should it be that we need real estate to become a digital product hub, right? Let's think about that. 10 companies like Infosys coming out to Goa, hiring 5 to 10,000 people each, basically putting people on the bench. There's no innovation in that. That's a factory. Innovations don't happen in factories. They happen in R&D departments. R&D departments are small teams, small groups, where there's a lot of trust. There's a lot of emphasis on testing and trying out hypotheses and allowing yourself to fail. Instead, I believe that Goa's pathway is 10,000 little startups hiring 10 people each. So why is this a better idea? 3 reasons, I think. Real innovation happens in small, inclusive teams, where everybody knows what's going on, everyone can collaborate to do something different, where everybody has a voice. The second reason, and a very important reason, is real innovation needs space for failure and for coaching. You cannot create something new without trying something new. If you try something new each time and never fail, then you're basically God. So inherently, given that most of us are not God, failure is part of innovation. And teams that allow failure to thrive are teams that are highly innovative. The third reason is that in a small team, people stay together for longer. And they do so not because they are bound by some tricky employment contract that they signed when they were too young to understand what was going on when they got out of college fresh. They stay together because they enjoy the company of the people that they're with, the mentorship that they get from the leaders that they have, and the opportunity they have to actually bond and connect with each other. I believe that this level of depth of connection between people happens only in small little teams. We don't need to copy the metros. We copy them in terms of the malls. We copy them in terms of cars. We copy them in many other ways. We don't need to copy them in the way they've approached the IT world. We don't need any of that. Goa can do this differently. We can do this if each one of us decides that we will run a company or we will found a company. We treat each of our employees with respect. We include them in the decisions that we make. We truly make them feel like they are part of this journey, for which we truly have to believe that they are part of the journey. So, I'm pushing for 10,000 free, inclusive startups that collaborate within their teams and with each other. And they guide their people to be inclusive and collaborative. That's the kind of culture that we want to spread in Goa. Let's make Goa the country's digital product hub. Let's do so without forgetting that with growth comes learning, from which comes failure, which can only happen with culture. And I'm going to say something very important right now, that Goa may not be famous for, but those who live here know what I'm saying. Growth can happen when there's learning. Learning can happen when there's room for failure. And failure can only happen when people do not feel ashamed to make mistakes. When people do not feel that they are standing in society is going to be affected by the people that have a stronger network than they do within that society. It only happens when you treat each one of your employees that no matter what happens, like a brother or a sister, you support them to their journey of figuring out how to build stuff. It's okay if they stumble, you have them to stand up again. I know this is not the kind of talk you expect to have in terms of the digital product innovation of our state, but if we're going to change the way we do things and we're going to do it better than the rest of the country, we better think about it differently than the rest of the country. We better approach this as a means of changing how we collaborate and how we think with each other, rather than just how we hire people and what kind of buildings we put them into. So Goa's future is one where the old school networks of influence and shame evolve into digital networks of inclusion and acceptance. That's my little thought on this topic. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much, Luke. That was really inspiring, really interesting to hear. So we actually have a few questions from the audience.
Sure.
So I'm just going to start with them. The first one is, a significant number of startups have actually crashed because of the pandemic. On the other hand, many people have lost their 9-to-5 jobs. So given the current situation and the need for stability, what is your advice for new graduates to apply for a job or start up your own enterprise?
My advice, so I'm not a graduate, so I can't comment on advice for new graduates because I've dropped out of of engineering. So I'm just a 12th guy. But if I were to have passed through college, I would tell people that it's not a question of where you're going to get placed or what the pay package is or whether it's a job or a startup. The question is about something different. We should not think about it as job versus startup or job versus doing your own thing. Think about it as, where will I learn the most right kinds of habits and behavior patterns from the leaders. Because you can find very large organizations that have very good cultures. You can also have small startups that have amazing cultures. Okay? So my model would be, if you can't find a job easily, try to find a leader that's willing to take you in even at no cost or some minimal cost to the company. Convince them to have you join them. Okay? But go where you will learn good practices, how to be a great human being, an extension, a great manager, a great collaborator, and ultimately be a great leader. You don't necessarily need to start something by yourself, but you need to learn how to do things the correct way, how to collaborate the right way.
That's really great advice, actually. And yeah, as someone who just started like working myself recently, yeah, I really kind of sync with what you said. I think that's so important. And yeah, I mean, also like since you kind of mentioned your own sort of journey, and also like being an entrepreneur yourself, a lot of it is about kind of trying out things. And also you mentioned about failure, like being in a safe environment where you feel okay to fail and then you learn from your failure. So what is the advantage of kind of learning by doing compared to learning in like a formal educational institution, like when you go out, especially into the world of work?
Yeah.
What are some things you can't actually learn in a formal education?
Sure. That answer once again by breaking the paradigm of learning in school versus learning out of school, and actually reframe it to there are 4 types of approaches to learning. Okay. Over the years, I've had the pleasure of working with hundreds of different people on my team, and you start to form this understanding of how they think and how they learn, how they process information. And through a conversation with a close friend, I learned of this framework, or not framework, but a sort of model of how people learn, which is people can learn by thinking about things, philosophers. People can learn by doing. People can learn by experimenting, scientists. Okay. People can learn by hearing from others. Okay. These are the 4 types of thinking. Different people have different approaches to how they learn best. For most, it's a combination of 2 or 3. I think that we do need formal institutions that give us frameworks on how to approach the world. But more importantly, what we need to think about is understanding what is the mental framework that we use best when we learn. So for me, for example, it's about thinking and experimenting and then doing. That's the sequence of events I go through when I want to. Who's very hands-on about me. I'm going to do it. I'm going to form some kind of intuition around it. I'm going to go back and do it again, learn from it. I think it's different for different people, which is why I think it's so important that young people find good leaders who know how to teach them how to learn.
Sure. Yeah, great. So actually kind of related to that, we have another question. Do you think you need a 9 to 5 job first to get basic skills to start your business, or can you just start it like as a young person? You're 18, you have a good idea, you feel like you want to start a business.
So it depends on what kind of business you want to run. If you want to run a hedge fund, I don't think you can just start it off by yourself. I think there are some specialized skills and networks you need to plug into to be able to do that. But I think that the real business is some form of trade, which goes back to the barter system, in which there is a mutual shared understanding around what value is, and it comes down to relationships. Okay, so in real business, in true business, where you're not trying to stab the other person in the back, you're trying to find a fair deal between you and somebody else. Anybody can do that. It doesn't take rocket science to do that. The problem is that we live in a society where when you try to strike a fair deal, the other side might take advantage of you. So what we really say when we say that we need to learn how to do business is actually learning how not to get taken advantage of, how to try to be fair and open, yet to have a defense system in place where if someone's trying to take advantage of you, you have your checks in place. Okay? I think to learn those skills, you do need to learn from great leaders, you need to learn from great managers. I think that you can also pick these things up from books, you can pick these things up from sports coaches, you can pick these things from my mom. Like I learned from my mom. I learned business from my mom because she used to bake cakes and we used to make sweets when we were kids. We used to sell them. I learned that she formed strong relationships, but she was also fair in, she was assertive enough to know how to set a price for the value that she created. And this self-respect that allows you to be assertive is an important part of doing business.
That's such great advice. Okay, so
I'll add to that.
Yeah,
the
sure.
I have at the bottom of my email, I've had it for almost 12 or 13 years now, and it says, weakness is not weakness. We used to see business as this sort of macho thing where people wear suits and they treat people like crap and they tell people what to do. That's not business at all. True business is being really humble, really kind, and respecting the fact that you cannot do things by yourself. You need to collaborate with other people, and those people have their own wishes and dreams. And they may be weak, but they're not weak.
That's really great. Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, so we have one more question from Ninochka. So
Hi, Ninochka.
she says, I love the fact that Luke is very Goa centered they choose to remain in Goa instead of moving away for better prospects?
Yeah. So I'm actually very Goa focused in terms of building up our homeland into a place that is um, different in terms of culture. We have a wonderful culture. I'm not trying to say that I want to change Goa's culture. What I'm trying to say is, in terms of the business culture, I think that we can become a benchmark for the country in how we do business with each other and with the rest of the country. I have lived abroad. I've lived in 3 different countries and I've done business. I still have interest in Canada and in India. And I've pretty much traveled back and forth for the most of my work life in the last 10 years. My emphasis on Goa is purely because it's a small place that's attracting a lot of interesting people that are moving out here. So it's going through this sort of pre-Cambrian phase before it turns into an explosion of innovation and culture. Goa is going to become a city. It's going to become the Bandra. It's going to become a massive version of Bandra. We, as the people who are out here right now, have the chance to have conversations with the people moving in. Tell them, hey, you're coming in here. You're going to build up something. This is the way we do things. This is the way we like to do things. This is the way we want to respect the people that we work with. Remember that each person you hire, the way you treat them is the way that they'll treat the future people that they hire when they start a company. If you don't treat them well, you are spoiling the culture of our place. We have that rare opportunity to be part of what is going to become one of the most commercially active places in this country and in the subcontinent. We have that rare opportunity to be at the center of that. What you guys are doing with Global Shapers is part of that initiative.
That's so inspiring. Yeah, really amazing to hear. And yeah, you're right. We're at a really important sort of like turning point, I think, in the world in general. Because yeah, obviously, I mean, like the pandemic is a terrible thing to happen. But I was actually watching this talk when I first joined the Global Shapers. One of the first talks that I saw, and it was I think this guy who was a consultant with like Bain and Co or something, and he spoke about how like throughout history, if you look back, it's all these times when the world has gone through trouble that has actually been the starting point of amazing innovations. So he'd also spoken about like the World War, like all the, I mean, it was a terrible time in human history when people died, but then post the World War, giant paradigm shift, and there was all this massive innovation and like changing lifestyle. So yeah, what you said is really interesting. That's kind of the movement in history we're at. And then in Goa especially, even for this time in the world, like Goa is a really interesting place just because of the types of people it's always attracted, like more alternative, like creative, artistic, and yeah, now sort of tech focused as well. That's really great to hear. Okay, so we have one last question, and then after that, we can end. So the last question is, students and young professionals do not know much about to gauge whether they are good or not. So how should they go about choosing whom to work and associate with?
Yeah, I'm going to rephrase that question too. Young people don't know what they're good at, not whether they're good or not. They're very good. Everyone's good. Everyone's wonderful. Typically what happens is that they get into roles or jobs where they're not good, and their managers or their bosses berate them for that. They develop an insecurity. They become insecure. And they become feeble then. So they're actually good at something, but they got put into the wrong sport, for example. Let's say that they're very good at running, but somebody made them swim instead. Then think, oh, I'm such a loser, I can't swim. They forgot that they were meant to run. Okay. This is half the problem we have with the way we look at gender in business as well. The way we look at people from different races, people from different cultures. We're forgetting that it's not the races or the gender, it's just the individual level interest and intent that decides what skills we want to pick up. So then to answer that question, how to resolve this, I think number one, each of us has to find self-acceptance, okay? Which means it doesn't matter how good you are at any particular skill or thing that you do. You accept yourself for who you are, where you come from. You don't feel any shame. I'm bringing up the shame word again because this is deeply tied to the way our culture manipulates us. Many years ago, I broke free of the shame of being basically not from a rich family, not from a rich background, and decided I'll just be who I want to be and do what I want to do, and I'll thoroughly enjoy my life doing so. So unshackled by what society wants me to do, I can move forward. I think the first rule is unshackle yourself. Find a group of people that don't mind you, that accept you as who you are, irrespective of what your background is, what your connections are, what your dad did, what your mom did, what your family surname is. You break out of that crap. Okay? Number two, really work hard to find a role with a leader that you respect. I'm not saying leader, I'm not saying a boss, I'm saying a leader. This could be a priest, this could be a missionary, this could be somebody from the social sector, someone who respects themselves and respects other people, because you learn the most important skill of management, which is how to understand other people, how to empathize with other people. As you pick up this skill, you start to figure out what you are good at doing, and this person that's working with you will allow you to make mistakes because they have empathy. They don't see it purely as the outcomes that you generate. They see it as the work that you're doing to get there. The third thing you need to find out is, what are you particularly good at? What's your superpower? What's your unfair advantage? Okay. So in some sense, what you want is a Magneto from the X-Men who can sort of see your skills and powers and he brings it out in a better way. Bottom line, okay, I'll say this in one very simple sentence. Work with good people so that they treat you with respect, so that you don't treat other people with respect, and you'll naturally find the right networks to break into, and you'll find the right job and role for you.
Amazing. Yeah, lovely way to end this talk. Thanks so much, Luke, for joining us today. And enjoy the rest of your morning.
Yep.
Hope your
By the way,
motorcycle ride.
a quick note for those who don't know, we run this little thing called Goa Motorcycle Club. And unlike a normal motorcycle club, our focus is not on the motorcycle, it's on the people. Okay? And the idea is to mix up people from different walks of society. So we have CEOs, we have major hedge fund managers in our ride, and we also have little mechanics and chefs who are just getting started. All kinds of different people. Okay? So the idea is to mix people up so they can learn how to form new connections, learn how to see what is. So if you don't ride a motorcycle, you're welcome to join us. It's a really special experience. We just had breakfast at my house today. We go to each other's houses for lunch and dinner. We really connect. The idea is to break the traditional bonds that society holds and controls us through, and to form new ones. It doesn't matter what society tells us to do. It matters what your heart wants you to do.
How amazing. What a lovely thought behind that. If I could ride a motorcycle, I would definitely join.
You learn.
I will work on that. Okay, thank you, Luke. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Hey, Pratap.
Yes, hi. How are you? Hello. Hi.
Hi, Pratap. Sorry, just had a small tech glitch. Yeah, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. So I'm just going to do a small introduction. So everyone, we have Pratap Raju joining us here from the Climate Collective. So Pratap has an extremely impressive and interesting sort of journey that brought him to Goa. He's actually a graduate not just from Harvard University but also Oxford, and he's been an entrepreneur for the last 20 years. He's worked in a range of different sectors, including IT, media, renewable energy, and now climate since 2009. He was one of the pioneers of solar in the early days of the National Solar Mission, and he's actually pivoted to supporting climate and clean tech startups throughout South Asia. So he's currently the founding partner of the Climate Collective Foundation, which he's going to be talking about a little bit today, which is a non-profit which is focused on unleashing innovation and entrepreneurship of people. And in order to do this, the Climate Collective supports the ecosystem around innovation and entrepreneurship. And the point is to use these as tools to promote sustainability. So some of their initiatives include the Climate Launchpad, Climate Ready for Women, Electron Wide for startups in the electric utility space. And in fact, before getting into climate and entrepreneurship, Pratap has gone through a really interesting journey. He's been both an investment banker and a Bollywood producer. So he has a wide, extensive range of experiences and a very diverse background as well. So that's what he brings to us today. So yes, over to you, Pratap.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to everyone here. Thanks for that great introduction. Goa is like my second home. I've been coming here for about 20 years. I used to live here as well, here in Asagao, 10 years back as well. Every time my bachelor days, every time I broke up, I think I would move to Goa. But I haven't broken up in the last 7 years years since I've gotten married. So, but I have moved here 3 months ago, so I'm very excited to be here and also work with entrepreneurs here as well. I'm going to share a screen. If give me 1 second, present my screen. Let's see. Malika, if you can just confirm with me that the deck is opening.
I think we're still waiting. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, as Malika mentioned, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, and it's quite varied background, mostly because I've been searching. And searching is not easy. 20 years as an entrepreneur after a small stint in banking before I moved to India in 2000. Now I found a passion that I love. The last maybe about 6 years, I've been supporting startups. A little bit about us very quickly. We run a foundation called the Climate Collective Foundation that supports early stage entrepreneurs in climate or clean tech. We work with the European Union's Climate Kick program, a very popular program here in India called Climate Launchpad. We've run Climate Launchpad for 2 years in Goa.
Sorry, Pratap, the screen is not sharing as yet.
Okay.
It's written down that says present now.
Sure.
And then you have to click on the actual window on top as well.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, it's sharing now. Yeah.
We do a lot of other Climate Ready for Women. We ran in Kerala. We recently got a 2-year grant to run Climate Women in Energy program, pre-accelerator across India just 2 weeks ago as well. We're quite excited. And we're working a lot in areas like plastic waste, where there is a great increasing problem around the world as well as here in Goa. If you want to learn more about us, just check us out on our website or our social media feeds. We've seen a lot of startups come to our programs. Almost 400 over the last 3 years have been accelerated. That tells me there is a tremendous hunger, tremendous interest in people exploring startups as a way to impact the environment positively. And this is amazing because this is something that I didn't see when I started this platform about 2014, 2015, but it's accelerating and accelerating super fast. So that's great. Maybe I want to share with you first just a few examples of some startups. These are startups that we see in India or Sri Lanka or Maldives. I'm going to skip this slide here. Actually, I won't skip it. I do want to be cognizant of the time here. If you're an entrepreneur, the one thing that you learn is that nothing is easy. Even the successful entrepreneurs know this as well. So I go by this church leader, church father from I think 4th or 5th century. Nothing great has ever been achieved without hope. Now it sounds great because we see a lot of inspirational talks and we hear them and we're motivated, but being an entrepreneur sometimes is more real once you are. I had a friend I was meeting at a party about 2 months ago, and she was telling me 5 years as an e-commerce startup, successful Series B, I think, fundraise, which means they raised a lot of money. She was telling me at this party, nobody here at this party realizes I haven't bought anything for myself in 5 years. So it is a little reality of startups. It's not an easy path, and you do need to believe in something. And in areas like impact, social enterprise, that is what drives us to reach the impact goals that we want. Now, in my space, climate, we do need to reach something called net zero emissions. That means, greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide that come from burning coal and gas and running our diesel and petrol cars. This needs to reduce drastically if we're not going to prevent all the cataclysmic changes coming from global warming. So net zero means when the world goes to a net zero emission of greenhouse gases. What do we need? We do need money, right? We do need strong leaders, right? Political leaders, family leaders, community leaders, religious leaders. Of course, we need policy as well. Paris Agreement at the international level and our own domestic policies. We also need innovation, right? It's something that sometimes we don't talk about too much because we think about the problem and oftentimes on the activism side. We also need innovation to make this happen. Now, why is that? We have in India all this solar and wind that's coming in. When I started in solar as a developer in 2009, there was something like 1 or 3 megawatts of solar plants connected to the grid, the electricity grid. Now there's 38,000 megawatts, and we're like the third largest in the world. It took a lot of capital. It took a lot of policies, right? Why can't we just build more solar and wind? Well, there's some problems. One is solar is an intermittent source of power, for example, meaning whenever there's cloud cover, energy production stops. And the grid can't handle this fluctuating supply, which is why I have those brownouts and blackouts and those other problems. We need technology like energy storage, or maybe forecasting technology to help the grid understand what the expected power is going to be 1 day later, 24 hours later. That requires innovation. Maybe another example is as we build more solar plants everywhere, we're going to have to face this problem that we're running out of water. Solar plants need water to clean the panels on a regular basis. Maybe not as much as coal, but still need some water. We need solutions to solve this. So I've seen entrepreneurs come and give these, for example, develop these robots that can clean water at less and sometimes zero water. So it's amazing. So it's not just capital. We also need innovation to solve these problems we're facing on this path to sustainability. So I'll share with you, there's an agency called International Energy Authority, IEA, to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2070. You see this graph, and the import of this graph is basically almost a third or more of the technologies we need today do not exist. Technologies, and find them fast. 2070 is a very, very far away. If we need to reach by 2050, which is still far away, the need is increased. So we need more technologies today to reach this. In this graph, mature means stuff like, for example, solar and wind technologies. Now, but why startups, right? Couldn't governments do this? They have money. They have technical institutes. Couldn't corporates do this? They're massive, right? And they're very strong. My own experience, I've seen, for example, my wife used to work at MasterCard in product development. And MasterCard does a lot of new innovations, fintech startups in-house. Almost none of it succeeds. They have more money, 10 times more money, 100 times bigger brand, all the people needed with all the technical skills. They just cannot do what 1, 2, 3 people are hosting. And I think that's the talent we need to tap everywhere here. That risk taking, that ability to think differently. Entrepreneurs can do this. I think that's sort of why we're seeing such an uptake of entrepreneurs tackling climate as well. I'm going to share with you just a few examples. I mean, we have so many. It's amazing to see a few examples of some entrepreneurs we've seen in India over the last few years. I think there's 4 here. A straightforward one, electric vehicles are coming. They're coming super fast around the world. I think I've read a report recently that from Goldman Sachs that 25% of all new vehicle sales in the world by 2025 will be electric vehicles. 25%, that's amazing. We may not see those numbers here at four-wheelers, but we will definitely see electric scooters and three-wheelers. In fact, a friend of mine told me about a stat in Bangladesh that they already have 11 lakh electric scooters today plying the roads. So Nikola Motors, I think out of Bangalore, what they do is something straightforward. They retrofit existing auto rickshaws at a price 30,000 rupees. This is a fast payback to auto rickshaws. because the cost of running the rickshaw is very, very low compared to petrol or CNG. 30,000 rupees is high, upfront. So there's fintech or financial innovation needed to solve that problem, leasing or some loans, etc. But I think we will solve this as well. And of course, this is very positive for the environment as well. Give you another example of what we're seeing is a large number of circular economy solutions coming up now. Insulite ceramics, for example. Now, whenever you run a coal plant, you have fly ash, waste. I'm from Visakhapatnam, and we have a lot of coal plants. They throw the waste fly ash in the rural areas, gets into our water tables, etc. Not very good. So this young team has come out and basically converted the fly ash into the raw material needed for ceramics, for ceramic manufacturers. And you can make those. You can make a whole bunch of products, out of ceramics. It's quite amazing what you can do with ceramics. Now, someone may say, well, why have coal plants? We should just have solar and wind, and we won't even have fly ash, right? But that's not today's problem. Right? Today's problem is this will exist. Our coal plants will be here still as they're being phased out. We'll still generate this fly ash, and Insulite Ceramics does a great job of finding out what to do with this waste problem profitably. Another example of a circular economy startup called Brook and Blooms. Now, in anywhere, but also in Banaras, the devotional flowers, after they're used, are thrown into the Ganga, which is bad, of course, for water pollution, for marine health, etc. So this young team, Brook and Blooms, what they've done is taken the waste worship flowers and converted it into fertilizer. And they sell to farmers. They solve the waste problem today. That's today's waste problem, and created some value that farmers were willing to buy. Now they face two problems. Right? Farmers don't have much money. Right? They're not, especially our farmers. Two, they're competing against very large fertilizer companies whose price of fertilizer is actually quite low. So what to do? So Brook and Bloom realized that it's not fertilizer only they're selling. They're selling holiness, right? Fertilizer tinged with holiness. So then they changed their business model and started selling this fertilizer to upper middle class homes with terrace gardens in Delhi, and they were able to sell at 5 times the price. So they're able to become financially sustainable as a startup and solve this waste problem at the same time. It's a very clever pivot of their business model to a different market or segment. Maybe one last example. This is such a cool early stage idea. The founder at Eco Karma, actually a friend of mine, she realized that sustainability is not just an individual value, but a community value. So what she does is she rewards people who do eco-friendly acts or buy eco-friendly products or support eco-friendly NGOs or organizations by giving that person Eco Karma points if they post their act on a social media platform. Right? Now, sometimes there's a saying, to a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And sometimes we think, let's make a better machine, a solution that uses less water. She tackles it the other way around, which is how do we change people's behavior, especially consumption behavior, as working on a business model to reward that action, that behavior change, and sharing that behavior change to others with some other environmental value. She focuses in particular on sustainable fashion, in particular where the textile industry, you may or may not know, is one of our worst, has the most harmful impacts on the environment. So these are some of the startups we see here, and I mentioned there's 400 that joined us in the last 3 years, which means there's an explosion of talent, of young entrepreneurs trying to solve our environmental problems, and we have many cross industries, cross locations, everywhere. But we are starting to see something else, which is great. Something in particular in the startup world is we are starting to see some climate startups scale up to quite a large size, and that gives the ecosystem more confidence. You can actually solve environmental problem through a business approach, in this case a startup approach. So some big climate tech startups you may or may not have heard of. One we've all heard of, right? Tesla. Right? Tesla is one of our biggest companies in the world right now. Pretty much started in the equivalent of a garage 15 years ago or so before Elon Musk came in and bought over the company. Right? And we have those same kinds of entrepreneurs like Nikola Motors here in India, working out of a home or in or an incubator right now, developing these ideas. But there are more. In fact, last year there was a study that showed that we have dozens of what are called unicorns, which means it's a very large startups from a valuation or size point of view. You may have heard of a plant-based burger globally called Beyond Burger. That's picked up by McDonald's. Right? It's actually could solve our problem of meat production. That's very harmful on the environment in many different ways, not just in the growing of animals for meat, but in the transport, etc. We have others like Nest smart thermometers that help, for example, regulate energy usage in a home. Companies like which are basically they model weather and climate data to help insurance companies sell insurance policies to farmers. And these are all multi-billion-dollar companies as well. So we're seeing something super amazing happen, not just in the number of entrepreneurs coming up, but how some are able to figure out how to some rapid manner, which means, of course, a very, very large impact. And we're seeing now finally many more companies supporting this. For example, Amazon has a nice massive $2 billion climate fund. Microsoft fund. Unilever has a $1 billion fund for plastic waste or packaging or things that related to their operations and impacting the environment. And it's just starting right now. In fact, Nestle has a challenge that's coming up next week, a tender to figure out how to support the environment as well through solutions. And we know in Goa, Nestle has a very big factory here as well. So maybe a last quote that I always use to kind of end this presentation is that we don't know how the future is going to turn out. Right? It is uncertain, but at least as a startup entrepreneur, this quote from a 19th century U.S. president: "The best way to predict the future is to create it." Great. Hope you got a sense for the exciting stuff that we're seeing, that I've been privileged to see in throughout India and South Asia, as well as the opportunities there are increasing for all of us here in the ecosystem, both on the funding side as well as from the market.
Thank you for that, Pratap. That was such an interesting talk. It was really optimistic as well. Just given like the times we're in right now and sort of the general mood that people are like, okay, there's change happening so quickly and positive change, and it's such a huge scale as well, which I actually had no idea about, and even like huge corporations are involved in it. So we just have a few questions from the audience. So the first question is, hello, PR advertising professional from media and music industry in Bombay, and I am now based in Goa. Is it possible for me to work for climate change, and how can I start in Goa?
Well, that's a great question. In fact, we need people like you to kind of support this movement to this very important goal: communication, awareness, and education. Right? If we don't have that, what do we have? We have big business and government working in the back. That's good, right? I don't know, even if you don't know anything about solar energy, we have solar energy coming into the grid. But that was only one part of our solution. of our need, I should say. There's much more we need. For example, what do we do with waste? I saw a statistic in the UK, for example, that a significant portion of textiles, fashion items, are purchased for one-time use. Something 8% of all fashion items one-time use before thrown to a landfill. That is not something a business can solve. In fact, it's good for business to sell more. We need awareness. We need education. We need campaigning, and your skills, especially in media and marketing, I think would be great. Now, you may want to check out and go in particular. They came out with a circular economy report in partnership with EU Resource Energy or something, or EU REI, committing Goa to becoming a circular economy state. And one of the goals is around plastic way out, because I think you'll see that the government here is starting to align towards sustainability and in particular circularity. So I think as a result, you may see more companies starting to align to those same goals as well here in Goa.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's really, really good to hear. Okay, so another question is kind of based on your own journey. Who introduced you to this field of green entrepreneurship? And the green revolution is picking up, but still has a long way to go. What challenges do you face in your line of work?
Oh yeah, I mean, like all entrepreneurs, who've been an entrepreneur for a while, I've had my ups and downs. So after the film industry, I pretty much left during the recession in 2008 because no one was paying me anymore. They weren't paying me well anyway, but it's kind of stopped during there. So I wanted something to do. So I read about solar. So I said, okay, this could be interesting. And it's kind of funny. People were telling me, it's so noble of you to do things like this in solar. And I'm scratching my head thinking, well, I'm trying to sell solar power at a price and make profit from it. I didn't feel there's nothing noble about it. So it was more of a business that I saw. It was a great business, and it is a growth business inherently. If you are looking for a field, sustainability is growing everywhere, especially post-COVID, where it's a big green transition pick up this steam. After I had a couple of kids, when I started realizing that, wait, what is going on to this world? This was after I joined solar, just shortly after, and you start reading everything in a different light. Even the smallest things, small from a impact point of view, is what if my kids will never see a rhino? What if they don't exist in this world when they're adult or their kids? What is happening becomes starker in reality. I think it's then I started thinking that this is a much more serious problem, and I started transitioning to climate change from solar as a business. I think 8 years back or so. So everyone follows a different path. Sometimes people have a value to the environment or in our feel the changes around them. Sometimes they don't. Like I didn't. When I was growing up, I was like, I need to make money. My first job was a banker, right? I didn't have any money. They were paying the most. We all have our different paths in reaching, I think, to something like impact area. It doesn't matter, sort of, sometimes how we get there. How do we get there?
That's really interesting to hear. And also this whole sort of thing that you mentioned also when you started out, that people kind of saw it as like a bind to sustainability and do stuff for the planet and for like the world. So just kind of wondering how that, and from that to now, where you say it's actually very profitable to go into these things, and even huge businesses and corporations are investing so much money in it. So what do you think is the reason for this shift? Do you think it's like a change in mindset and like the way we see value in society, or what do you think has been like the reason for this?
Sure. I have a view. It may not be entirely accurate, but India signed up for this thing called Paris Agreement, which we may have all heard. It's an international treaty where I think about 2015, I can't remember. Where we committed to really going green, in particular in our renewable energy, converting our energy grid to a powered by clean energy. So that's great. Now the real secret is that profitable. Right? So I mean we're counting our success in the Paris Agreement, but this is actually helping us drastically. It's cheaper than coal. it reduces our oil imports, etc. I think there's a lesson here, not always, but there's a lesson that if you can create a transition path for someone, corporate government, even people as consumers, that is either reasonable and in some cases cost effective, you'll see greater movement towards the same. So I think that I'll give you one more stat is that there's been studies over the last 30 years that corporates that are sustainably focused do better in the stock market. Right? So being sustainable doesn't is actually helps your stock price, and the reason why is corporates become sensitive to resource efficiency, which saves them money. Right? So I think we're seeing a change. I'm not saying that as a result, there's no good-hearted people making sacrifices when they don't need to reach sustainability. I'm just saying that we're seeing a shift after the last 30 years that actually sustainability may be very positive for us as a society, positive for us as a corporate, and maybe even governments are finding it positive. For example, think about air pollution. A move towards sustainability that reduces air pollution is a positive political goal in terms of votes as well.
Yeah.
So I think things are aligning nicely to actually all of us wanting to do this, not just a few activists pushing everyone.
Sure, yeah, that's so great. Okay, just a last question in view of time. So this question is from Benita. She's wondering what pushed you to take the jump from banking to pursue entrepreneurship? Being an employee to starting your own thing.
Right. I don't know, but I can say that the reason why I became a banker is because everyone told me to do it, and it paid the most. Now that may be fine. I'm just saying that I didn't listen to myself. You know, I was more interested in archaeology, I think, in college than banking. I hated banking. The only thing I saw is I made a lot of money. I couldn't spend it, and I started eating a lot more, just putting on weight. I think. Imagine the world of, especially before you go out once a week at most, to having the ability to eat, to go out at any time you want. That's the only real benefit I saw for myself. Now, personal decision. I fortunately left early because I showed up one day on Sunday, New York, at a bank called JP Morgan. I worked on Sunday, and I saw my head of my program, the department, oil and gas, 65-year-old guy, managing director, show up on Sunday. So I realized in 40, 45 years, I didn't want to be this person. Coming in on Sunday to kind of to make more money. He has more than enough money, being the MD. So I left. It just happened that I became an entrepreneur mainly because I showed up in India and I didn't know what to do. That made me an entrepreneur, and I kind of liked it, to be honest.
That's great, yeah. And we're happy that you made that choice because that's what kind of brought you to Goa, which is nice for Goa as well. Okay, thank you so much, Pratap. This has been a really fascinating conversation, and yeah, we're so glad you could join us this morning. And thanks very much. And everyone, you can check out more of Pratap's work on the Climate Collective website, and they also have different opportunities, initiatives, challenges. So please check over there to stay up to date.
Great, thank you very much for this,
Thank
Monica,
you.
and everyone else. Bye. Take care.
Bye. Navneet. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Can you?
Yeah, I can. I was just checking my audio. Perfect.
Smriti, can you put your video on? Can you hear me? Hi. Video on? Can you hear me now? Yes. We're just waiting for a last one. We're just waiting for a last come and then we can start.
Perfect. Who's joining us again?
Abhijit
Okay.
is going to be coming. Okay, so hello everybody, whoever's tuned in. I'll just start with the intros, the speakers who are here right now. The first one is Navneet Prakash. He is a filmmaker based out of Bombay as well. Many documentary shows as well as short films. A few years ago, he moved to Goa and started Cafe Rasa, which is Goa designed primarily for creative life. Cafe Rasa is now one of the most popular co-working spaces in Goa. It's the most go-to hub for most of the artistic community. His long-term plan is to start a coffee roastery and have his own brand in Goa. Hi, Navneet.
Hi.
Next, we have Smriti Nagpal. She's an Indian television presenter, a sign language interpreter, and a social entrepreneur. Founded Atulya Kala. It's an organization which promotes deaf education and awareness of sign language, and also founded the Parkin Cafe, which is run by deaf employees. She's also included in the women. Forbes 30 under also received the Nelson Mandela Award for the youth club. So, welcome, Smriti. There's a lot that you've achieved. Thank you so much. Thank you. And we just have Abhijit as well now. Hi, Abhijit. I'll just introduce Abhijit. Abhijit has founded two edtech startups to serve as fellow India mission and also built India's backward. In 2018, he launched the ecosystem, which is a non-profit on building innovation and entrepreneurship for research. So yeah, let's get into the last question. The first question is, what do you think right now? Especially when we saw you in the public, but I'm not able to hear you either. There's a lot of
Sandeep, there's an echo from your side.
Can you hear me now?
Navneet, I think there's an echo from your side.
I don't think so. There's nothing going on here. Actually, in my podcasting room, so I don't think there's anything here.
Let's just try it. Why do you think local enterprise is important right now, especially when we see the fallouts of is the environment and what is to smaller cities like Goa? Abhijit, do you want to take
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that properly.
yeah, I'll repeat it. Why do you think local enterprise is important right now, especially when you see the fallouts of globalization? And do you think India is a conducive environment given in terms of metros as well as smaller cities like Goa?
Well, absolutely. I think this is a great time. I think that there's certain good things that have happened because of the pandemic situation. Also, like has broken up, and there are a lot of things that were neglected previously that have come to light. Still, infrastructure issues. There's focus from the government side very specifically towards development of local enterprises. It has been there since a very long time, but the current situation has forced them to accelerate. I'm not sure if you guys have like the very recent initiative, which is called One District, One Product. So it started about a few years back, but then in the past few months it has shape, and the government is heavily pushing for that kind of an agenda. So there are products like the other war cry of sorts. There's a communities, MSMEs, strengthening MSMEs primarily. How can we look at how can we look at replacing the imports from other countries and becoming more self-reliant? So there are several for such a realization. So I think there's no better time than now to that step ahead and actually think towards building that building that community that we need. Sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Do you see a lot of difference between metros as compared to smaller cities like Goa, especially for local enterprises? Do you think it's conducive?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think there needs to be a lot of work that needs to be done in tier two cities or upcoming regions primarily. So I'm primarily sitting here in Nagpur, which is a tier two town. I've been and worked in Bombay, Bangalore kind of places, and been running like a local startup community. So there are certain challenges which are inherent to because of the socio-economic framework that we have in tier two regions. But then yes, there is a movement, there is a rising wave of entrepreneurs coming from tier two cities. Some of them have made it really big in the startup world, even at a regional level. Now fighting with like it's a healthy competition that's happening. That okay, which region comes out on top, and I think especially with Goa, you guys have a very awesome IT cell and like the ministry there, which is pushing in a lot more enterprises and startups to bloom.
Navneet, what do you think, especially now that you're looking at situation in Goa?
So, honestly, COVID was very, very hard for everyone. And to say that it helped is very subjective. In many cases, yeah, because a lot of people finally had a chance to essentially sit down and analyze and figure out what they were doing. Because once you start a business, from the first day, you're basically firefighting, trying to keep yourself alive. You suddenly realize that, okay, you know what, I need to take 2 steps back. This clearly says and shows that there is nothing foolproof. But now that this has happened, can we just sort of, retake a few steps? Can we just take a few steps back and figure out what to do? Like in my case, when we started the cafe and we had to shut shop in March. So before we could find our footing, we had to shut shop. And the idea of the cafe was to have a hub for people, other creatives. I get a lot of designers in the cafe, and I was trying to create a community hub where they can come and collaborate. And a place like that takes a little time. But before we could do anything, we had to shut shop. And then it was, of course, very hard. I was very lucky. I had the support of my team. I had the support of my landlord, who was also very, very supportive, to be very honest. But yeah, I also got a chance to sit back and figure out what is it that I can do. And that's where I would say my experience of working in Bombay, because a place like Bombay and Mumbai will really, really toughen you up. There you survive on a daily basis for everything. And I really believe, going back to the question that, okay, local enterprises, it's a given that we need local enterprises. There's no two, that's very obvious. But the idea of smaller towns, tier two towns, I think that's very important. I believe that all the experience that I had in Bombay and Mumbai, all the experience that I had, I was really able to take that and come to a place like Panjim, and really I gained a lot from my experience, and I was able to put a lot, in terms of infrastructure, there's a big difference. You can't compare Mumbai to a Panjim, but Panjim is a great space, and there are many such places. Nagpur included, by the way. I've spent some time in Nagpur as well. There are many, many, many places that are so-called tier town cities in tier two towns in India that have so much potential. Okay, a little infrastructure is missing, but people have the drive, and there's so much potential to do so much across the country. I think tier two towns and tier three towns are the future. There's only so much that a Mumbai can do, that a Bangalore can do, that a Delhi can do. Mathematically speaking, it doesn't make sense to have 4 hubs as opposed to 400. So I'm all for local enterprise, and I'm all for the so-called smaller towns. I have a lot of friends and family who are still in Mumbai, and they're